Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It could be a while longer before we learn what sparked the fire on the Oceanside Pier, but there are new clues. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Investigators continued working through the weekend, and for now, public access remains closed. The fire broke out Thursday afternoon and burned through Friday before firefighters were able to get full control of it. Firefighters broke through the pier, creating a trench that stopped the fire from spreading and saved 90% of the pier. Oceanside Fire Chief David Parsons gave a briefing on the investigation this afternoon.
We've identified the area of origin to be the northwest corner outside of the building. No evidence of an incendiary or intentional act was found. We did have an accelerant detection canine provided by ATF and operated by San Diego Fire and Rescue MASS, which is their arson team personnel. That canine found 0 hits and 0 interest. What that does is it leaves us with accidental causes as the most likely explanation.
And Chief Parsons said a full report with more information is expected to be released in the coming weeks. The city is expected to declare a local state of emergency this week in order to apply for federal assistance in the rebuilding of the pier. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne has more from the Oceanside Pier.
We're here at the Oceanside Pier, where the Oceanside Fire Department just gave their final media briefing on the damage that the fire caused to this pier. Now they are saying that 90 to 95% of the pier was saved through their efforts, with the majority of the damage being at the very end of the pier, the hammerhead as many know it, and those buildings being a complete loss. But what isn't lost here, thankfully, is the pier, which many describe as the heart and soul of the city, where many memories have been made. And we talked to some of those community members that told us their stories earlier today.
The Oceanside Pier is off limits after last week's fire. And for many community members, that is a change to their routines.
So my dad, he comes down all the time and picks roses from his garden and brings them and throws them over the pier and just comes and just kind of, spends some time.
Lynette Staley and her dad use the pier as a way to be closer to her mom, who died 6 years ago. They scattered her ashes in the ocean.
I go with him, but now he can't do that anymore. So he said, this is going to change everything.
Now they stop at the top of the pier's entrance, where Staley's mom has a memorial brick.
We're just sad. We're just sad that we can't do those same memories, and just sad.
And for others, there are just the memories of what used to be.
The pier, and I was just so sad I started crying.
Lots of 50s birthday parties at Reeby's with my daughters. My son actually still has a piece of the end of the pier because he climbed up there and stole one of those owls that are on the top, the plastic one, so he still has it.
Despite her sadness, Vicki Casper says she's grateful first responders saved the majority of the pier. Now she looks forward to a new page in the history of the Oceanside Pier.
And city and public safety officials hope to get the pier reopened 75% of the way to the public. And they hope to do it sooner rather than later, maybe even before Memorial Day. Live in Oceanside, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Now we're going to continue to see some morning cloudiness, especially at the immediate coastline over the course of the next couple of days. Now, later on in the week, the winds will begin to blow more offshore, and that will mean we'll see less cloudiness and even more sunshine. For most, though, it's going to be a dry to warm stretch as we go throughout the next several days. There will be some breezes here throughout the mountains and the deserts, but we're going to lay out all the details coming up in just a bit.
The fate of many graduation ceremonies is at stake this week as pro-Palestinian protests continue at U.S. universities. As Laura Aguirre reports, some schools are threatening to escalate efforts to shut demonstrations down.
Chaos erupting at the University of Texas in Austin as police moved in Monday afternoon to make arrests and forcibly dismantle a protest encampment. The threat of a similar scene is unfolding at Columbia University, where students are encircling an encampment there, standing firm against an afternoon deadline to remove the tents or face disciplinary action, including suspension. In a statement earlier, the school's president said Columbia was exploring alternative options to, quote, end this crisis, without revealing what those options were.
We feel the need to continue to protest in this camp.
What we need is for universities to reassert control over their campuses.
21 House Democrats sent a letter to Columbia's Board of Trustees Monday demanding an end to the encampments or that they step down.
The real problem here is that the administration called the Atlanta police.
Hundreds of faculty members at Atlanta's Emory University are holding a no-confidence vote Monday, urging that school's president to resign over his handling of the student demonstrations. The university crackdown at Emory, similar to other events in recent days at other schools like Virginia Tech, George Washington University, UCLA, and USC, where graduation has already been canceled, administrators say, over safety concerns, a move that could be repeated at other schools as commencement dates and encampment standoffs collide. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The White House declined to say if President Biden believes demonstrators who've camped out on campuses should face disciplinary actions. It did, however, reiterate the president's support for the right to peacefully protest while criticizing anti-Semitic rhetoric and calls for violence. First responders, like paramedics and EMTs, face constant stress and risk on the job. Data shows nearly 70% report not enough recovery time between traumatic calls. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco tells us about a new support program.
Despite extensive training, first responders are never fully prepared for the trauma they encounter. They often respond to the worst days of people's lives: accidents, deaths, fires, and other tragic events. Whitney Hager has been a paramedic for 7 years. Every time she rushes to an emergency with sirens blaring, she's risking her own mental health.
I did have somebody that I responded to that had committed suicide, and that one is something that's kind of stuck with me. That particular person was around a similar age that I was at the time, and that kind of stuck with me and affected me. I know for some of my coworkers, calls involving pediatrics can be especially difficult.
Research shows that first responders experience feelings of depression, job burnout, troubled relationships, and use substances. They are significantly more likely to die by suicide than the general public, but they often feel hesitant about seeking help because they worry it might make them seem less capable at their jobs.
I dealt with it on my own. I didn't really reach out to anybody. It was just something that I kind of internalized, thought about for a little bit, and then after time was able to move on from.
Another challenge is the scarcity of mental health resources tailored to emergency response workers. They often end up seeing general practitioners who might not fully understand what they go through on the job. A new program aims to tackle these challenges by offering psychological crisis intervention training to paramedics, EMTs, and dispatchers. Jacqueline O'Hagan says the goal is for the participants to learn how to support each other.
We gave them a very solid base of how to talk to individuals on like personal bases, as well as debriefs, as well as a group debrief. So really kind of hitting at all different aspects of what a peer supporter might respond to.
O'Hagan says it's the first of its kind in the country because it combines a mental health professional with first-hand experience in emergency response. She hopes the training will help make discussions about trauma and triggers easier for her colleagues. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Repairs on the USS Boxer could take longer than Navy officials first anticipated. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer has the latest.
After initial estimates of 2 to 3 weeks, Navy officials now aren't saying when they expect the Boxer to resume its long-delayed deployment. But it won't be leaving San Diego for needed repairs to its rudder. This comes after reports that the Navy was considering sending the Boxer north to Portland, Oregon for repairs to its rudder. That's because the 2 San Diego dry docks are currently occupied by other warships. The ship has seen years of delays, stemming from a $200 million overhaul and upgrade that began in 2020. The amphibious assault ship, its crew of 1,000 sailors, plus up to 2,000 Marines, left San Diego April 1st for deployment. But 10 days later, it had to turn around and come home after damage was found on its rudder. Now, over my left shoulder, you can see the Boxer is still at its pier at Naval Base San Diego. Navy official tells KPBS the Navy hasn't quite decided whether to repair the ship in a dry dock or pierside, but that decision is expected this week. In Coronado, Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Carlsbad wants to add a solar farm on city-owned land at its reservoir. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen says the project is in the beginning stages, but could bring new revenue for the city's water district.
The solar panels here at Algar Norte Community Park not only provide shade for the cars in the parking lot, but they also help Carlsbad meet its climate goals.
To increase renewable energy production on city facilities.
Jason Haber is the Intergovernmental Affairs Director for the City of Carlsbad. He says it's part of the city's goal to protect the environment.
We're the only city in North County to have a certified habitat management plan, and it's part of the city's overall effort to increase sustainability and protect the natural environment and natural resources.
He says Carlsbad was one of the first cities in the region to have a climate action plan. Over the past few years, the city has transitioned nearly 100 of its vehicles to hybrid and electric. Carlsbad also aims to have a 100% renewable energy supply by 2035. To do that, the city is looking to build a solar farm at the Merkel Reservoir on the eastern end of the city. It's part of Carlsbad's 5-year plan for environmental sustainability. At a meeting earlier this month, the City Council approved a feasibility study for a solar farm there.
Given the land that's available at Merkel, the Merkel site, we're talking about roughly a 30-acre parcel that we think is available for potential solar and battery storage development, which preliminary estimates indicate could accommodate about 6 to 8 megawatts of solar capacity.
He says that's enough to power up to 10,000 homes. And because the land is owned by the Carlsbad Municipal Water District, Haber says the energy savings could offset water rates for Carlsbad residents. While the solar farm project has some upfront costs, Haber says that over the lifetime of the project, it could save the city millions. He hopes to have a consultant in place by the end of the year to help the city with the feasibility assessment. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
San Diego County Board of Supervisors Chairwoman Nora Vargas won't be able to speak in public for several weeks. Today, she announced that she has nodules on her vocal cords and needs to rest her voice in order to prevent undergoing surgery. Vargas says she will do her best to follow doctor's orders and serve her community in every way possible without using her vocal cords. The Board of Supervisors meets tomorrow. Vargas says Vargas did not say whether she would attend, but said her District 1 staff will show up for other community events.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, ceasefire negotiations continue as Israeli leaders brace for potential International Criminal Court arrest warrants. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The Department of Homeland Security is creating a panel on artificial intelligence safety with CEOs from some of the world's largest companies. Michael Yoshida explains how the government hopes to prevent potential disasters.
When it comes to assessing the threats of artificial intelligence, experts say the trick is to sort science fiction from potential reality.
The more immediate risks are things like these tools being used to craft cyber attacks or to power misinformation campaigns.
That's why the Department of Homeland Security is forming a 22-member AI Safety and Security Board that includes the CEOs of major tech companies.
So the idea is to give critical infrastructure in the US the tools, the expertise, and the advice needed to harness AI.
This is a technology that's clearly very powerful.
Speaking at the World Economic Forum in January, OpenAI CEO and AI Safety and Security Board member Sam Altman addressed the fears around the technology.
We cannot say with certainty exactly what's going to happen. And it could go very wrong.
After numerous high-profile hearings and closed-door sessions, Congress has yet to pass a targeted national AI law. The Safety and Security Board stems from President Joe Biden's 2023 executive action, calling for a cross-industry body to make recommendations. But there are concerns about placing CEOs on the panel.
They're surely, concerned about safety and reliability of the systems, but they also are looking to promote their own technologies.
The panel will also include leading AI academics, government officials, civil rights lawyers, and defense contractors. I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
San Diego County's senior population is projected to grow by more than 21% in the next 10 years. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says as the senior population grows, so does concern about a group known as elder orphans.
When Leon Christensen was 65 years old, he suffered a brain bleed. For 4 days, he lay undiscovered in his apartment until concerned neighbors, noticing a smell, called for help. Rescuers thought he was dead and took him to the morgue before realizing he wasn't.
I wasn't dead. I was unconscious, barely existing dead. I mean, I still had a breath, but not much.
Christensen's story, although rare, is a sobering example of the social isolation elder orphans face as they grow old without support. While it's hard to know the exact number of people who fit into this category, it's estimated that around 101,000 people over 65 live alone in San Diego County. That's about 1 in 5 seniors. Christensen is 82. He never married or had children, although he said he came close a few times. It's been more than 20 years since he's seen any family.
I still have my second, third cousins, such, but they don't live. They live on the other side of the country. And last time I saw them was at my mother's funeral back in 2002, and I haven't heard from anyone since.
Dr. Ellen Lee is a clinician and researcher at UC San Diego Health. She's studied the epidemic of social isolation and loneliness and sees a steep increase in older adults. She attributes to rising rates of childlessness, lower rates of marriage, and the aging of baby boomers.
So when you get older, the risk factors for becoming more likely to be isolated or alone are increased. Like you're more likely to lose family and friends and significant others as they pass away. You're more likely to become more frail and less mobile. So you're going to be more dependent on people whose support you may or may not be able to access. So we do think that those rates are rising. How much is difficult to say.
Lee says elder orphans often don't have people to help them with functional support, simple tasks that are harder to accomplish as we age.
Like people to help you get groceries, people to help you get medicines, people to drive you to the doctor, versus even having like an emotional, intimate relationship, sort of that emotional support.
She says it's challenging for clinicians to identify these individuals, making it difficult to manage the complexities involved in delivering care, especially if they don't volunteer the information. After his accident, Christensen was left mostly paralyzed, but needs a motorized wheelchair to get around. He's also legally blind and can only see shapes. He relies on caregiver support twice a week for a few hours. They help him with grooming, making meals, and sorting medications.
You better have an apple. Okay. They represent family to me.
Christensen lives at a senior residence in the East Village of San Diego. He said he's not the only one living there alone.
Of the individuals that I know here, at least 6 of them have no other immediate family except us.
Research has linked social isolation and loneliness in older adults to higher risks for a variety of physical and mental conditions, such as high blood pressure, heart disease, depression, and cognitive decline. Paul Downey is CEO of Serving Seniors, a nonprofit organization that helps low-income elders in San Diego.
We see a significant number of people that live alone, that family either isn't there, they're estranged from, but they're by themselves. And so they have to cope with everything, and not just medical issues, but they don't have anybody to talk to.
He says economic insecurity may add another burden to orphan elders, with 19% living on about $1,500 a month in San Diego County. At his senior center, the number is much higher.
For us, our biggest challenge is 86% of our seniors live below the federal poverty level, which means they are right on the cusp of homelessness.
Experts say senior centers play a critical role in addressing this epidemic of loneliness by cultivating social connections. Whether it's a place to share a meal, take a fitness class, or simply engage with others, senior centers can be a lifeline to many older adults who live alone. Downey says the community also plays a vital role.
If you have an older adult neighbor, go check on them. Stop by and say hello. Bring them a cup of coffee. Go out of your way.
For Christensen, his brush with death has given him a new perspective on aging alone.
I'm quite happy with being an orphan. Because I have survived death, I think every day is a good day.
He keeps an open door policy so he can wave to friends as they pass by the hall. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Well, cameras rolled during an emotional reunion at the San Diego airport over the weekend. 90 veterans returned home from an honor flight dedicated to Navy SEALs yesterday. And one of them, Vietnam veteran Wayne Hampton, received a hero's welcome when he got off of the plane. He was surprised by his wife Diane and their grandchildren, who were among the crowd waiting for him at the bottom of the escalator.
I'd never seen a tear come out of his eyes in 45 years. And when I saw that tear and he wiped his eye, it just made me feel so emotional. Just to see all of these people here appreciating him too and his service, it's a wonderful feeling.
And his family says the surprise was the welcome home that he did not receive when he came back from the Vietnam War.
Later on tonight, right along the coastline, there will be some low cloudiness developing. The marine layer right now is not all that active, kind of shallow in nature. So what cloudiness does form later on tonight will not be lasting a long period of time as we go throughout tomorrow. Temperature-wise, Chula Vista and Oceanside matching 53s down into the mid-40s in Ramona. And we'll slip down to right around the 59 degrees in Borrego Springs. Here's a look at future satellite and radar. And there you can see the ribbon of a cloudiness here right along the coastline, but then notice how quickly it begins to fade. So not having a huge influence again on the overall weather as we work our way through the day. And notice it starts to work its way back in as we head our way right into the late evening hours. So here's the snapshot of Tuesday, and overall it's going to be a nice day. Again, there will be some low clouds at the immediate coast here first thing in the morning, and then again later on at night. Most of the warmth here out away from the coastline, and we'll actually see a little bit of a warming trend here as we work our way down the road. 71 Oceanside for the high. Ramona 77 degrees. We'll be topping out in the mid-90s around Borrego Springs, and 60 toward Mount Laguna. Heading out toward Wednesday, low pressure stays well away from us. We stay dry, and then we'll start to see our winds turning a little more offshore as we work our way into Thursday, and also into Friday means more sunshine, perhaps boosting up the mercury a degree or so more here toward the coast, but overall not a big change. Overnight lows stay put into the 50s. Over some of the valley locations, we'll notice that's a warming trend here as we work our way from Tuesday into Thursday, and then we'll cool things off just a little bit here heading in toward the upcoming weekend. Meanwhile, toward the mountainous locations, there will be some breezes around. Otherwise, a milder day setting up shop here for the start of the weekend. And in the deserts, also turning a little bit warmer as we head our way into Friday and Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
And now it's time for something pretty adorable. We're getting a look at the pair of giant pandas who will be making their way to San Diego. San Diego Zoo Wildlife says caretakers recently visited China to meet them. Yun Chuan is described as a mild-mannered, nearly 5-year-old male whose mother was born here in San Diego back in 2007. The first character of his name is a nod to his grandmother, Bai Yun, who lived at the San Diego Zoo for 23 years. Now, the other panda is Xin Bao, a 4-year-old female who is, quote, witty and introverted. Our media partner KGTV spoke to zoo visitors today about the panda's highly anticipated arrival.
Their babies are really cute and they're black and white. Those are my 2 favorite colors.
I'm just really excited because I know they've been here before, but like just having them back, like who doesn't love pandas?
It is exciting, and an exact date for the handoff hasn't been set yet, but the two are expected to arrive sometime this summer. It's part of an ongoing panda diplomacy conservation partnership between China and the United States. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, a tribal development in Oregon is showing how to build affordable homes that are highly energy efficient and able to withstand climate change. And KPBS Midday Edition has a show all about libraries and how the city of San Diego's recent budget cuts will impact their services. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.